American football, the sport that replaced baseball as the national pastime of the United States and yet never caught on internationally despite many attempts at spreading the game overseas. The US's North American neighbors have been a bit more receptive, but it's still only the third most popular sport in Mexico, and Canada plays its own version of the game that looks considerably different than the one played south of the border. But there are some pockets in Europe where the game has earned a modest following. Germany has what most consider to be the top domestic league overseas, while teams from Austria and Italy consistently make a run at the European Football League title every year. And then there's Spain, an Olympic powerhouse where soccer stands above all other sports in popularity. But American football has a cult following in certain parts of this historic country, and the athletes who play the game are fierce promoters of the sport. Does that passion translate to more fans, or is American football destined to remain a niche sport for transplants and outsiders? Certain strategies and initiatives are taking shape that might indicate a brighter future for American football in Spain. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Season 1, Episode 4 of Growing the Game, where each week I talk to a new guest about the development of a particular sport in a particular country. Today I'll have some help with me on the interviewing side as I'm joined by Margie Olivarez, a good friend of mine who went to grad school in Spain and works in college athletics here in San Antonio. And she actually hooked up this great interview with Diego Gutierrez, who's the team psychologist and assistant quarterbacks coach for an American football club in Spain called Camioneros de Coslada. Diego, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. So I want to get a little bit of information on your background. So tell me about where you grew up.
I grew up in Mexico City. I'm from Mexico City. Now I live in Spain. I've been here for 8 years. It was a long ride to come here to Spain, but I used to play American football in Mexico City.
And how did you get introduced to American football in Mexico City?
I mean, in Mexico, it's a huge sport. I can put it around the second or third place of sports in Mexico. We have obviously soccer. Then I don't know if it would be baseball or American football, but it's between those two places.
So do, like most kids, do they watch the NFL, or is there something else that they watch?
I mean, we have, it's a huge tradition to be honest. My grandfather used to play for Mexico's national team, American football, and I'm talking about when the helmets were made out of leather and this kind of stuff. So in my family runs a lot of this tradition of American football. I just remember Sundays in my family are always about football.
Yeah. So were there like children's leagues? Like, is that how you got started, or when was the first time you picked up a football and actually started playing?
I started playing when I was 6 years. 6 years old. I played because I was demanding that to my father. I used to do swimming. I was such a little kid and so small and so skinny. My mother didn't want to let me practice American football, but my father was a huge fan. So he convinced my mother, and I went to practice. My father supposed it was gonna be like flag football, but we were they were full pads already in 6 years old. So since day one, I was like just thrilled.
So I was actually telling Zach about the fact that the NFL does exhibition games in Mexico City in Estadio Azteca, right?
Right.
So have you been able to go to any of those games?
Yes. I just I was about to lose the last one, which was going to be Kansas City Chiefs versus the Rams last season, but that got canceled. My first one was preseason game. It was I think it was Dallas Cowboys versus, I don't remember if it was Houston or something like that. Then I got to go to another one where there was a Mexican player playing for Denver Broncos, which was Marco Martos. He played in Barcelona Dragons here in Spain, in NFL Europa, and then he went back to the tryouts on the NFL, and he played one play, but I mean, we were crazy in Estadio Azteca. And then the season game, which was San Francisco versus Cardinals, which was like a full record of attendance to the Estadio Azteca. It was fully crowded because in the pitch is smaller than soccer, so we had much more seats to fill, and it was crazy.
What's the atmosphere like? I mean, I know for soccer games it gets wild there, even when U.S. and Mexico play for soccer games. But how does that differ for a football game?
It was completely crazy. I mean, I have a video in one of my computers where I saw Jerry Jones on the pitch of Estadio Azteca, just recording the people. He wasn't seeing the game. He was recording the people like he was. I suppose he was thinking like, this is a preseason game. We don't care about this much, and people here is going crazy just because, I don't know, these players inside the pitch or something is it's going crazy. And then there was a rumor that says that day he said that he wanted to build a stadium as big as Estadio Azteca for the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
And the project started.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
And also, on the other game that I was saying, which was San Francisco versus Arizona Cardinals, I mean, you know, Mexicans, we go crazy, and I was with my best friend outside in the parking lot. It was not like in the States. It was not like a tailgate or something like that, barbecues or this kind of stuff. But it was like NFL experience and all these situations that goes around, and sponsors, and to just to throw the ball, to kick the ball, this kind of stuff. And I remember myself, I was looking at one guy. He was huge. He was this guy was huge, completely different from the Mexican look, if it makes sense. And a lot of people was coming to him and just asking for an autograph or photo. So I was like, is he a player? Is he like this lineman that you don't like from the deep chart? You know, it was like, who can this guy be? So I was looking on the internet. I say, I want to ask him. So I go, excuse me, are you famous? Are you a player? And he goes like, no, man, you guys are crazy. I'm just a fan. I'm here in Mexico. I'm just a fan. But he was huge. He looked like a player.
Wow. So let me ask you this. So as you got older, middle school, high school, first of all, can you play on high school teams?
Yes. The last level we have in Mexico is college. You got drafted. I mean, it's not drafted. It's you can go and do the tryouts and this kind of stuff. And the highest thing you can get in Mexico for this is a full scholarship in like special or really expensive university. And we have now some examples. I mean, there's been a lot of players that have been trying to go to the NFL or even just to make it, CFL maybe, and this kind of stuff. Now you have Isaac Alarcón as number 60 for Dallas Cowboys. He's really working his way up. I hope he makes it to the roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you played in high school?
My last year was it's called. It was 1 year before to go to college.
Okay.
Because I wanted to study medicine, and it was completely out of. It was not possible to do that. To pull out 2 practice a day and go to the gym and then go and study medicine. It was going to be crazy.
So did you end up going to medical school?
I ended up going to medical school 1.5 years, and then transferred myself to psychology and then to sports psychology in Spain.
Okay. So what made you decide to go into sports psychology?
Well, as I was saying, I played American football for 13 years. I realized myself that I was the type of player that was so dedicated and so disciplined, but I knew I didn't have the talent. I had the knowledge, I had the like the willpower to always go and to give like my best, but I wasn't like gifted. I mean, all my teammates started to grow up. I was my first 10 years of football was I was the quarterback, but then they started to grow, and I was like just looking when they stand, like when the old line stands up, I was like, wow, I don't know where to pass the ball. I cannot see. And I just stopped growing, and then start to get fat. So then transfer myself to the D line. So that was good.
And so you initially went to Spain to study sports psychology, or you
Yes.
in Mexico?
Yes. The first thing was like, okay, I mean, you have America right there, so you always have this influence and this kind of stuff. I mean, it was just right there. We talk about it with Margie a lot. Doing I don't know, an MBA in sports management, just like across the corner. But I decided to come here to do sports psychology because back in those days, it was 2012. I realized I loved American football, but it was like the ceiling was too short. It was like I have no contact with the NFL, and it wouldn't be possible to go to college football or something like that, to work in the football industry. So I started to look into the Olympic movement a lot. And back on those days, when you realize any sport you like, you will see in the top 10 one person from Spain. One guy was from Spain in the top 5. So it was, for me, it was like, okay, they're doing something that the rest of the world is not doing. Even though they got lucky with this generation of people in Barcelona playing football and this kind of stuff together, and then Messi, whatever. It was like in any sport. So I said, I want to go there. I want to check out what they're doing correctly, and what can we take out of this.
Right. So when you say you wanted to like learn what you could take out of it, do you mean like things that you could see that Spain was doing right that you could bring back to Mexico and implement?
That was the first idea, actually. That was the first idea because, as I was saying, like you can think about, I mean, motorsports. You have Fernando Alonso. You have motorcycle. You have Marc Marquez. You go to running, and you have one guy that was from Spain. Tennis, you have Rafa Nadal. It was like such a great generation back in those days that it was like, what are they doing? And actually, one of the biggest answers that I got, it was like the working psychology.
Oh.
Rafa Nadal does a lot of sports psychology work. So for me, it was like, okay, something is going on in this side. Without the stigma that psychology has on itself,
Right. So you kind of see like, because like there's a lot of elements that go into making something successful, or growing a sport, or making more talented players. But so coaching obviously is pretty massive. But what you're saying is that psychological aspect plays a bigger role than people maybe would expect.
I think so. I mean, obviously, you always got these pep talks that it's 90% physical, 1% whatever. This 1% to get you better, it's going to be mental. But I think it's the other way around. I mean, if you have a mentally health athlete, I mean, we're talking about kids that are dedicating their lives into something that they cannot control anything. You control what they eat. You control when they sleep. You control when they wake up, how much they train, so you control basically all their lives. And then when they are done or if they are not like mentally healthy, they go crazy. You have this kid that earns, I don't know, well, let's say $500 million, and he's 27 years. If he's not mentally healthy enough, he will lose it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have the example of Balotelli buying a Ferrari and crashing it, and it doesn't matter. It's I'm Balotelli. You know, it would like. So these kind of stuff are kind of the things that made me realize that, okay, being a coach is good. You will influentiate a lot in the players, but having the knowledge of the side of the sports psychology will be like a massive impact in the difference that you can make in the players.
Is that something that you maybe didn't see a lot of in Mexico, just like an effort to use sports psychology on the athletes? You saw a lot of it in Spain, but just didn't see much of it in Mexico?
There's a lot of professionals now that are dedicating themselves into the sports psychology world in Mexico, but I mean, not as they can do that. Especially in football, American football is like so closed, so broad. Like there's so much brotherhood into the players and this kind of stuff that if you don't belong there, you will not be able to participate in these situations. I mean, I had the opportunity to be with one coach of one of the biggest team in Mexico, which is called Águilas Blancas. I had the opportunity to be with him in the meetings and this kind of stuff. His name is Raúl Canedo. This guy is like the master of sports psychology in that team, and he doesn't it's just what he have learned and read and this kind of stuff. It's auto teached, if it makes sense, you know. So for me, it was like, okay, if you wanna, there's a huge opportunity here. But then something happened along the way, and I decided to stay here in Spain.
Yeah.
So how did you come across the football league and Camioneros specifically when you were in Madrid?
So nowadays, for starters, I was like going through a rough patch in my life here in Spain. So I decided, I woke up and I said, there must be something that I know and they don't. Something so I realized it was like, okay, I've been dedicating myself 13 years playing this sport that I love. I watch it every day. So maybe there's something. I mean, there was this NFL Europe and Barcelona Dragons and this kind of stuff. So I Googled it literally. Mm-hmm. And I found a lot of teams. And then I realized, obviously, it's an amateur league and this kind of stuff. But actually, you realize that there's teams that has like the budget to bring American players to Spain to just to be here, you know. So I decided to enroll myself in one of the biggest team in Spain, which is currently playing Serie A, which is the top level, and that's it. That's how I got into Camioneros.
So you mentioned the budget there, and you know, football is famous, or American football is famous for being one of the more expensive sports here in America, and you know, people often blame that, at least partially, they blame the inability for it to expand internationally on the cost, the equipment, maybe sometimes the complexity of the game. But so, first of all, I guess my first question is, where does that budget come from? Like, are a lot of people going to the games? Like, how do they have a budget to put this stuff on?
No, we pay for playing.
Really?
Yes, all the players had to pay an enrollment to like the insurance and a monthly fee to stay in the team. I mean, the team in the case of my team, we provide the equipment, the helmet, and the shoulder pads and on the uniforms. I mean, you just have to say the guy. I mean, for starters, you will have to understand that the profile of the player that comes here is he doesn't work for football, you know, because football here, I mean soccer. Sorry, soccer is a religion here. So if you don't play soccer or basketball, what should you do? So then I don't know, somehow you realize that there's this crazy sport of people hitting themselves and going crazy and you see the videos in YouTube, and you see, I don't know, your grandfather give you one jersey someday because he went to the US, and there's like these small links are the things that brings players to try this sport.
Mhm.
So we just go like, okay, bring your sportswear and some cleats, because obviously you have played soccer, so bring your soccer cleats, and then we explain to you how this sucks, and you change it for American football cleats. So that's it.
Interesting. So players are paying. So can you give me an idea of like just a rough estimate of like what would the average player pay?
We can go into the specifics. I mean, I don't care. One player has to pay around 270 or 50 euros for the insurance, around that.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the team, depends on the federation, that agreement that they reach with the insurance company and this kind of stuff. Then in Spain, you can play from 50 to maybe 70 euros a month to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then imagine that you have, like, if you play in Serie A, which is the top level, Serie A, sorry, you will have to travel. So maybe the team doesn't have the budget, so you have to pay with all the team for the bus and the accommodation in the city and this kind of stuff. It's to be honest, it's a struggle, but
right.
It's really fun.
So you mentioned in Mexico, top sport is soccer, football, then maybe baseball, and then American football. How far down do we have to go in Spain to reach American football?
We have teams everywhere. Like, honestly, you can find teams in Andalusia, you can find teams in the north, in Bilbao, you can find teams in Murcia, in Valencia. I mean, there's everywhere a team. Obviously, the thing is, in Serie A, we are currently, I think it's just 10 teams. We used to be 12, but now we're just 10.
But I think what Zach was trying to say was, like, popularity-wise, obviously it's sports in Spain. It's soccer, tennis.
And soccer.
Yeah, it really is. We went to grad school that was put on by a football club. Mm-hmm. And sure, they show you, like, okay, here's what the motorsport is like. Mm-hmm. Here's what fencing is like. I mean, we took a fencing class.
Exactly.
But
yes.
The gist of everything was always soccer.
Right.
Everything was soccer.
Yeah. So
they breed soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the average fan, right? So the average person in Spain, so they'll watch all the soccer games, La Liga, right? Yeah. And then they'll maybe watch basketball, because basketball is pretty big in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't see, you cannot see a lot of NBA,
Right.
You have ACB, you have ACB, which is a really cool league to watch, actually.
Yeah.
And obviously the Eurobasket League, which is around Europe. So they have a lot of things to watch regarding that. And also you transfer your passion from your team. I mean, you have Real Madrid Basketball Club, Barcelona Basketball Club. So you transfer your passion from your soccer team to your basketball team. So it's a win-win,
Right, yeah. That's interesting.
And the jerseys are the same. They have the same logos.
Exactly. And in the case of American football, I mean, you like, to love American football here is to understand. This is my example. I have a couple of friends. I mean, we're like 10 friends or so, that every year you have to ask for a holiday on the Monday after the Super Bowl, so you can watch it. So my boss knows that around 5 of February or 6 of February, I will not go to work because I will be resting, because I watched Super Bowl to 6 a.m.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So you have to find these kind of solutions and to find, like, your family, your freak family to share this passion with, because every person that looks into American football here is kind of a freak, And you have a lot of good players. There's level, but the thing is, you don't have the support. You don't have the budget to give opportunities. There was, when we were doing in this grad school, a company that used to take people from Spain that were in the developing stages of their sports career to go to America to study and to have a full scholarship there and to practice the sports they love. Mm-hmm. I specifically went to this guy and asked him, hey, what about football? He said, hey, forget it. American football, it would be impossible. I mean,
yeah. And, that brings up another question. So does Spain have a national governing body? Do they have a federation for football like they do for basketball, everything else?
Yes, American Football Federation. It's called FEFA, Federación Española de Fútbol Americano, which through the head coach of the national women's team, I got drafted to be with them. Mm-hmm. And they do, to be honest, they do what they can to push through this. I mean, you can go to, we have a tournament that's called Spanish Flag Football Tournament. Mm-hmm. The Spanish is like literally a tournament that the federation organizes for the teams. And they do everything. You can see the president of the director of the federation just running up down the fields to watch if everything is okay and this kind of stuff. And you have, I have a good friend in there. His name is Íñigo. This guy is always doing everything, like painting the field, arranging the pylons on the end zones, recording the games. Everything that he can do, he will do it, So it's like, I don't care what position you play. If you're here, you have to help in order for this to happen.
Right.
To give you an example, in my team, my players have to, I'm talking about game day. So you have to be focused. We're playing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You have to be, instead of 3 hours early, 2 hours early prior to the game, you have to be 3 hours early so you can finish painting the field, the pitch, finish putting the posts. No, everything we do it by ourselves,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's dedication. I don't know a lot.
Even so, you can find a lot of players that are referees. So when they're not playing, they're being referee.
Wow. So the federation, do they own the league? Like, do they have the right to own that league and all the teams in it, or are there separate owners for the teams?
We have no. The teams are different associations, and they subscribe themselves into the federation. But there's a lot of different federations. I mean, for example, here in Madrid, I'm in Madrid now, but okay. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, you have the national federation, which is FEFA, and then you have the smaller federation for your city. In this case, the Madrilenian Federation, if it makes sense. But the governing board will be the national, Obviously, if you don't play in the national level and you just play the small league, it doesn't matter. If they have calendars or whatever, you just do your own,
So the national federation, they're the ones in charge of that flag football tournament.
Yeah, we have flag football and full patch football.
Yeah. And so do they put on any other events that you've seen to kind of help maybe increase youth participation?
Depends. Not federation wisely, but the teams. Every team goes into whatever they can do to find people to play. For example, a year ago, before this pandemic situation happened, we went to a huge. I don't know how can I say, it's like an expo maybe, mm-hmm. but it's just with kids and with the youth population in Madrid. It's huge in a huge complex, and we as a team got a big space there. It was like, for example, 200 square meters mm-hmm. to show what was Camioneros, So we managed to have like this typical net that were with the holes that you throw the ball to. We kick the ball. We do some drills and this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So the kids put on a helmet, put on a shoulder pad, and take photos with mom and dad, and that's it. And hopefully one day he will say, I was there and I put on. So I want to try it.
Right. So
this kind of stuff.
So if they do want to try it, like say there's like an 8-year-old who's like, they go to an expo like that and they really fall in love with the game, how would they go about getting involved? Would it go through the clubs?
For example, when I go to these things, I used to be the head coach of the kids back on the days. Last year I was the head coach of the kids, and before the pandemic, and then I stopped doing that because I became a member of the board of the team. So when I was there, my goal was the kid will have fun, but the goal is to explain to mom and dad what will happen to him. This is a huge opportunity. We teach a lot of values here. This is a discipline sport. Every kid is valuable here. I don't care if he's fast, if he's tall, if he's not, if he's short, I don't care. So he will be taken into account. We are like a family, blah, 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 blah. You explain everything to mom and dad, and one day or another, you explain to them that you're a sports psychologist and you can help them with the kid and the schoolwork, and they will come.
So what does the league look like for juniors?
It's a small league. We have I'm gonna get into the specifics of how we arrange the sport. Okay, so we have flag football from 9 till 16. 16. No, 13. Sorry, from 13 to 17, you can use full pads. You can be in the first category. Then you go to the youth category, which is from, I don't remember if it's 16 to 18, and then you can become a senior. But imagine that you are an 18 years old guy going up in the first category of your team, and you will be playing with people that it's 48 years old, for example.
Wow.
36 years old. It doesn't matter. We need players,
Yeah.
Like, for example, the president of my team is still playing.
Wow.
So it's
I'm talking about crazy people. Sorry.
it's basically like once you get past a certain age, it's a free-for-all for who can play.
Yes. Obviously, I mean, depends on the level of competition that you're in. For example, us playing in a top level, and obviously we want to win the championship. It's like we will be playing with the bests,
Mm-hmm.
So we try to be because everybody's paying, no?
Mm-hmm.
So you will have to respect a little bit on this situation. There's always this problem on, I need to start this guy because this guy is coming every day. This guy is paying to the team. This guy is whatever, but he's not the best, So there's always this problem, and it's difficult. But obviously you manage it because it's the way it has to be. Right. Everybody has to play.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier about football for women. How is that growing? How did that come to life, really?
If I can explain, like, if I was saying before that American football in Spain, it's from crazy people that loved these sports and make it grow. Imagine what it would be to explain to you what is women American football in Spain. That's the thing. So that is exactly the people that are really the freak ones, So you're playing like a considered men's sport, which is not. I mean, they are great players. It's amazing how they work. And actually, they are the ones that work a lot in the recruiting part for their own teams,
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, they go out. For example, I have some women players that they went out to supermarket. They go dress as a team, and they literally approach to every woman like getting out who looks like a little bit sporty, Excuse me, what sport do you play? Do you want to play American football? This is a crazy sport which you will love. Whatever they do, whatever they can to bring them to the community of American football.
Wow, I think that's crazy because even here in the States, you don't really have leagues or even teams for women's football. The extent of it is you do like your juniors and your seniors in high school play against each other, and
exactly,
that's it.
exactly. Imagine, so I can explain you that. I think the director of the federation once told me, I don't recall if it was the exact number, but I'm gonna throw myself into the pool. So in Europe, we have 138 national teams and national federations of American football. Okay, around whole Europe, just 8 of them have women national team.
Wow.
One of them is Spain. So that's crazy. That puts into perspective how small this sport is.
So then what other countries do you know of? Any of the other countries that have a women's team?
I had the opportunity to play against Italy, because we went into currently now the head coach drafted me to be part of the national women's team as the QB's assistant coach, but also as the sports psychologist. But then the pandemic happens. So we only had the opportunity to play against Italy. It was the craziest game in my life, to be honest, because we were just entering as the staff members of the national team. We had from 18 to 20 players. So, and then you faced a national team which had 45 women in the roster. They have more staff members than we had players.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Coaches and this. No, it was crazy. To be honest, that was the craziest game I've ever watched here in Spain. We won 14. I don't know if it was 14 or 12-6 around so. Yeah, 12-6. Wow. It was crazy. But I mean, in mid-July, which is really hot in Madrid, we're talking about 40 degrees Celsius around so, with full pads.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Wow.
Then we were speaking with teams like France, these kind of teams that are nearby. But now with this situation, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they're still figuring out the protocols. How can we manage the concentration and the training camps and this kind of stuff? So how can we do that with this pandemic situation, obviously, and taking into account that the worst part is in Madrid now. So, well, it has always been in Madrid and Barcelona. Mm-hmm. So the thing is kind of complicated right now to talk about the women's team. Yeah. But it was one of the greatest experience I've ever had in this sport.
Wow.
So for the women's national team, did you have players from everywhere in Spain?
Yes.
Yeah. And then
yes.
The practice is mainly in Madrid?
Sometimes depends on the arrangements of the federation and the facilities that we have available. Mm-hmm. But yeah, mainly our head coach is focusing in Madrid.
So you've been in Spain for nearly a decade now. How would you say the popularity has either increased or decreased? Like, has Spain made progress in growing the sport itself?
The main problem, to be honest, will always be money. Mm-hmm. For sure, because we don't have spaces to sponsor, to find sponsors, or it's like literally knocking doors. Mm-hmm. You go and you present your brochure and say, hey, I'm a sports institution here in Spain. We play this sport. It's called American football. We love it, and we believe the values that you are giving into your employees. It's maybe some of them are equally to what we are teaching in the pitch. So, hey, do you want to drop some money? So it's kind of weird for that situation. It will always be the money, but we, like the federation, managed to made a lot of progress. I have been a witness of that, because the first season I was here, like we played in the lower league, which was Serie C, and it's just like teams from Madrid, you know. Mm-hmm. And then when we went to Serie A, the federation made an agreement with La Liga. La Liga, which is the institution of the football, soccer, they have like one area that's called La Liga Sports, and they dedicate themselves to broadcast all the sports in Spain. So they go to, I don't know, you can find volleyball, you can find hockey, baseball, or something like that. So crazy sports, and you can go to La Liga and knock to them and say, hey, I want to participate, I want to be involved. So now we are broadcasting like the most important game in the week, like the game that everybody wants to watch, weekly, and then obviously playoffs and the finals. So that it's really cool. It's getting better opportunities for the team because now people can watch it at home, through YouTube and this kind of stuff. So this increases a lot because our season starts in in September, and we end around the end of May or the starting of June. So depends on how far you go into the season, obviously. Imagine the weather here, just being out there. We have no budget of nothing, sometimes you go out and practice in the snow. I mean, I know that this is the way the sport is. We don't care about the weather, but the people that it's going to sit down there and watch a game for 3 or 2.5 hours without knowing the sport, without understanding what the hell is going on in the field. So for your mom and dad, for your girlfriend, will be like literally a torture,
Yeah. Do you happen to know any of the viewership numbers from when you guys started streaming some of the games? Do you have any?
Depends on the game. I mean, I cannot say. For example, last final, I think it was around 3,000 or something like that.
Pretty good.
It's good. I mean, we're talking about 10 teams around from 20 to 40 something players in the first division team. So we have been increasing our fan base, if we can call it like that.
Do you have any ideas? Is there anything that you would like to see from maybe the federation or from the clubs that would help grow the sport? Are there any efforts that they can make to help speed up the process of growing the sport?
We're talking about a major sponsor or something to make the league a little bit bigger with much more opportunities. We are mirroring ourselves with the biggest league in Europe, which is the EFL, the German league. They do have they are professionally, they look themselves as a professionals, and they don't pay to play,
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about the first level, obviously. Right. So they're doing a lot of things that are really cool. And for example, we are a team that brings imports. We have, as rule, we only have the possibility to bring 3 imports into the team. Okay, so import is considered a people from GFL, which is German, obviously USA, Mexico, and I do believe that Japan and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the countries that are considered they're playing the best American football level. So your players are being considered imports.
Okay.
But you can bring a Mexican player that is both nationality, Spaniard or Mexican. So he will play as Spaniard,
I see.
This is
a loophole.
Yeah, it's a loophole that, for example, in America, you take a lot of advantage. I mean, in New York, there's a lot of Italians, so you're not considered an import.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because of the dual nationality, right?
Exactly. Depends, obviously, in the regulation of IFAF, which is the International Federation. I mean, for example, if you play a year here in Spain and you want to go back to Mexico and go back to your high level team, you have only 4 to 6 years to play American football, and you wasted one in Spain. I'm sorry, you have 4 left, if it makes sense. depends on these kind of regulations. People wants to do that. But imagine a guy in Mexico City that finishes his career. Now he just ends, like literally just graduated from his career. And then you call him and say, hey, you want to come to Europe just for 1 year and play a little bit more? And of course, you get accommodation, you get the food, you get I cannot say it's a salary, but because it's not a salary, but a little donation of the club to support yourself here in the country. So for me, to sum this up, for me it would be some major breakout regarding the sponsorship in order to grow for the league. I'm just talking about the league, but also the opportunity to give more. I don't know, to give more visibility to the league around the communities. We represent a small community that's called Coslada. It's a city here in Madrid. It's a small city, but they know Camioneros. They know who we are. Let's take advantage of that. Let's push towards new agreements, new sponsorships, and this kind of stuff. But I'm not talking about as a team. Let's do it as a federation. This is the thing. This is the thing that we will have to look forward in order to grow.
Right.
Imagine knocking doors at universities in the US just to ask them if they have helmets or shoulder pads that they're gonna throw away. Like, do you want to donate them to Spain? I mean, we take care of the transport and this kind of stuff. Help us, do whatever, like this kind of stuff. I actually myself went to the U.S. Embassy because there was like special budget to the people that was bringing American culture into Europe. So I was knocking the door, like literally, hey, we're playing American football. Like there's nothing much more American than American football, Do you want to help us? And it didn't happen. So we need something like that to happen,
I think so. I think it's interesting that you say that because I know a lot of college teams, they go to Europe for summers. Obviously, not when there's a pandemic, but they will take teams to go and they'll play in Europe. For example, I know, what was it? Iowa softball went and did like a summer in Italy, and they played softball at a softball league in Italy, or volleyball. And, I think it's interesting that they do that, but I don't know that would be viable for football, simply because one, you're in preseason mode already in the summer. And then two, traveling like 100 kids is hard enough as it is in the US. Imagine Europe.
What we've been doing, I think you saw that on my social networks. What we are doing is to go to clinics. The last clinic was that I went to. It was in Varese in Italy. It was with the full staff of Chicago Bears and with Steve Spagnuolo from the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So imagine for the people of Italy, but every player in Europe could come, but you have to pay, obviously, for starters. Then once you paid, imagine the experience. I mean, you're gonna be coached, for example, in the defense by Steve Spagnuolo. There's nothing gets better than that,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to be a shadow coach for the QB's coach of the Chicago Bears. I mean, it was so you get these opportunities, but you have to look up for them. I don't know. They're gonna go to Austria or they're gonna go to Germany, and there's the Cowboy staff going to somewhere. So you have to look for that and pay for that and enroll yourself into these adventures in order to get better. But it is what it is. I mean, this is what you love. This is what you want to do, and it gets better day by day. Well, you can get a little bit deeper into the political situation. And for example, just to give you an example, like the party that is running the city that we are in Coslada, in one of the parties that is running currently the Coslada city, they're saying that they're gonna build or refurbish a pitch that it's abandoned just for Camioneros,
Mm-hmm.
So this is a huge opportunity for us.
Wow.
But the other, literally the other party that used to run Coslada, they want us out of Coslada. So it's crazy. It's been okay, what's the situation? I don't we want to be here. We want to see if we can imagine in Spain having your own pitch with the yards and the hash marks, and it would be crazy, We play in
them every game.
Yeah, no, and obviously we always play in football pitches, with the
circle in the middle.
Exactly, with a circle in the middle and this kind of stuff. So there's one team in Madrid that now has his own football, but it's a rugby field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's always competition for field accessibility, whereas here,
exactly.
I grew up playing on football
American
fields,
football
fields, and you had
of course
soccer lines over them. So
exactly.
And not only that, we had to play. So I grew up when I played club. We played on grass fields that were made for soccer, but then as American football took over, we had to transfer over to turf because that's what the football teams were playing on. So that's what soccer teams ended up playing on. So for us, it's a complete opposite.
Yeah.
You have to paint the lines onto an American football field.
Imagine to find a 100 yards field here in Spain when the football pitch is not that long, Right. So you have, sometimes you go out to a municipality in Granada and you play 80 yards field.
Oh.
So you have to,
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but we have to work it out in order to the sport to grow. For example, football flag field, which is easier to delimitate. We have this tape, this duct tape that we put it in the pitch, just stick it there, and once the game is over, just take it out, and that's it.
Duct tape the field.
That's crazy, yeah. But it kind of shows the dedication, and how much they love the game. They're willing to do,
what they want to do to play what they love.
There's a lot of people that are crazy about this game here in Spain, to be honest. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of players that if they didn't born in Spain, if they born in USA or something like that, they will be playing the sport,
Right.
There's level, but the thing is, well, this is where you live, so make it happen.
Yeah. Diego, thanks so much for your time. This was really insightful, and I just felt like I knew absolutely nothing about American football in Spain, and now I'm maybe I can go teach a class about it. Just kidding. But thanks so much.
I can help you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
No, thank you. It was great to be here, and obviously, thank you, Margie, for always taking me into account of these situations. And in this case, anything you need or some information regarding the teams or whatever you need, just ask for it, and I will help you. Okay?
Absolutely. We'll try and find you some helmets, some used helmets from a college. All right.
Please, but think about first in Camioneros.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah.